Jimmy, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I think one of the ways that we can draw brothers back to the foundation is through enhancing our value proposition. And I think one of the ways that we do that is to start to share the art of the possible. And our goal is to highlight brothers across the realm in terms of business or athletics or entertainment. And I think that we can all benefit from your story. So if you don't mind, for the benefit of our listeners, can you share a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Steve, thank you. And I'm truly honored to be a part of this. And what I do for a living is I try to get under the skin of the art of story, and through that, in different mediums, I've tried to emotionally impact people's lives. And I feel very lucky to be at this age, and I'm still pumped up every day with the stuff on my plate. So, you know, in terms of the art of possibility, boy, do I love that idea.
People call you a Renaissance man because you do it all. So how did you get started?
I started because I grew up in just an extraordinary garden. I lived in LaGrange, Illinois, which is a suburb on the west side of Chicago, with 6 other brothers and sisters and a spectacular mom and dad, and just full of life and full of joy, and an amazing town with an amazing high school. And I really grew up in the parish of St. Francis, which was our parish, and it couldn't have been richer. It couldn't have been a better place. And through all of that, that's really where that was where all the seeds were. And then I went to University of Kentucky after high school days, and had an extraordinary experience, and was an SAE, and that was a big part of that journey. And then went out to California, drove a car across the country. I literally didn't know a single person north or west of LaGrange, Illinois. And it was fun, and it was everything you're talking about, the art of possibility. That's all it was about, was let's see, what else do I have to, why not? And my first job was actually I was through SAE. I had the privilege of being I was the tutor to the SAE chapter at USC. And those were pre-internet, pre all that stuff. And so sort of the deal was, through mail, was when I got out there, was they were going to set up all my classes in this master's program at USC in music, and then they were going to set up everything with my room and board in the fraternity house and all that stuff, and they were going to get it all lined up. And I knocked on the fraternity door. It was like knocking on the Wizard of Oz door. The door is about 17 feet tall, and knocked on it at 11 o'clock at night on a Friday night of rush week. And the president of the house came to the door with a beer the size of a trash can, and I said, I'm Jimmy Dunne from University of Kentucky, your tutor in residence. And as I said it, I thought, none of those words are good words at all to this guy of who I am. And he looked at me, and with his beer in his hand, and he said, "That's what I forgot to do." There was no room in the house. There was no classes set up, nothing. And but that was the beginning of my California journey, and it's been a wonderful journey along the way. That's a long answer to a short question.
No, that's a great answer. So what was your fondest memory being an SAE?
Gosh.
Either undergrad or graduate.
I think my fondest memory at the SAE house in Kentucky was really lunchtime. It was, you know, all the guys coming back from class, and just it was that sense of belonging, and it really has become a theme for things that I'm involved in now, both with work and also civic things and community things as well, is really how do you find a sense of, you know, how do you create a sense of belonging in people's lives? And but to me, SAE at its heart, that's what it was. I was a part of a, you know, with you, Steve, being at Indiana, same sort of thing. You know, you're part of these huge places, and SAE and being a part of a fraternity with a bunch of great buddies focused that. And my, you know, Kentucky for me was the SAE house. It was my pals there. And so that, you know, sitting around having a hamburger with my buddies, that's what I loved. And, you know, and I would say, you know, in the big picture of that, when I think of what was kind of the you know, what did I get from SAE? What was the give to, you know, what was the takeaway with all of it? For me, it was really, I walked away from there having the privilege of meeting guys who I didn't want to be and guys who I did want to emulate. And both were invaluable to me. And I loved that part of it. I loved the diversity of that. I loved the challenge of that. And how do you draw from people that you love and respect in a fraternity, that you're pals, and how do you go out and do that? And lucky me to have extraordinary people that were in that house that have been teachers my whole life.
That's amazing. I have, we were doing a little research, Jimmy, you might be surprised, but we did a little research, and I have an email from one of your University of Kentucky brothers, and he told us about a story at Joe Bologna's Pizza and how you all showed up and forgot your wallets and you took charge and made it all work out. So you want to share a little bit of that story?
I think he's talking about we were at a you know, just a town restaurant kind of a thing, and probably more nights than not, you know, none of us brought our wallets or whatever it was, and it's God only knows what time it was, and we're leaving, and you know, and it was sort of, are we going to go start washing dishes, or you know, do we have any other tricks up our sleeve? And it seems like more often than not, a lot of times, you know, my job was to be the court jester in life. Go, you know, Jimmy, go do something, juggle, play the piano, sing somebody something, go do something. So in that case, I think I was playing the piano and singing some songs, and you know, and paid for our meals. So that was it's, you know, it's, I'd have to say that the theme of that has always been, you know, music, especially as a kid, really was a way of giving me confidence that I, you know, could do something and get compensated for it. And, you know, and in those early days, that started as just, you know, I was a bus boy in a town country club, and they, in a busboy outfit, because they didn't want to pay union dues, I'd sit behind a curtain and play the piano, and for the 19th hole of the golfers, and they'd, you know, and they're all sitting in there after golf all day with, you know, cocktailed up, and I'm behind this big, thick curtain on this grand piano in my busboy outfit. I was probably in all of, you know, 8th grade or something, and I'm playing my heart out, these songs like Born Free and, you know, Do You Know the Way to San Jose, or whatever they were, and or Sunny, and I just finished Born Free with this big ending, and I was just playing as loud as I could, just praying that somebody would say good job or clap or something. And the only thing I like ended, and I'm listening, hoping, and this man yelled out, "Somebody turn that shit off." And you know, but you move
through.
along, and you know, it's with each. I played the piano in it was a bar restaurant, this Italian bar that was it was owned by this mafia guy, and Tone was his name, and I'd play there every Friday night, and the thing that I always loved was every night, no matter what, it would end up being where all the guys would be saying, "So can you play my fight song from my university?" And you know, I learned along the way to survive that basically everything kind of sounds like "Cheer, Cheer for Old Notre Dame." And so I'd say, and they'd say, you know, "University of Nebraska," and I start to play. You know, I said, "You just sing along, and I'll follow you." And whatever they played, I was sort of starting with "Cheer, Cheer for Old Notre Dame," and you just kind of keep going along with them, and then next thing you know, they're singing, "How did you know the fight song from University of Nebraska?" And $20 later, you know, the next guy's saying the same thing. But you know, so little steps along the way that give you some confidence and put a snap in your step, but you know, get you where you're going.
So I can see all the records in the background, and they're amazing. And I think people would be surprised to hear how you got your original start with Mr. Marshall. Do you mind just taking a couple minutes and sharing that?
Absolutely. When I got out to California, I had two inns that I was so pumped up about, and that was my only kind of connection point to anybody in California, outside of the being an SAE and the fraternity and being the tutor there. And one was my mother, since we were little kids, talked about how she was great, how her boyfriend in 6th grade was oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. He's the guy that was the comedian that Bob Newhart. And that she talked about how she was this Bob Newhart's boyfriend. So like I did many days in that period when I first got out to California, you know, I was sneaking over the fences at Paramount and at Universal and MGM, and you know, and just itching around and trying to open up, to your point, the art of possibilities. And so I knocked on the door of this little cabana thing of Bob Newhart, and this little old secretary was in there, and I said, you know, "I'm Jimmy Dunne, and my mom dated Bob, you know, when they were at Ascension High School or grammar school." She said, "Oh my God, that's the sweetest story I've ever heard. I can't wait to tell Bob. He's going to be so excited." She went into his office and shut the door, and it like took too long for her to come back out. And then she came back out and she said, "I'm so sorry, but Bob Newhart has absolutely no idea who your mother is." And so I was one down with, you know, with one to go. The other bullet was a kid that I taught tennis lessons to in Chicago. His dad was sort of a mediocre friend of Gary Marshall, who was you know, had a whole bunch of TV shows on the air at the time, Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley, and then Mork and Mindy and a bunch of other ones. And so I, as a good Midwesterner, dressed in a suit and tie, went in for my meeting in the middle of a hot day in August, and went to Paramount Pictures, and I walked in Mr. Marshall's door, and the thing that I learned after many years with Gary Marshall is that he talked like he had a lobotomy a couple days before that, with this New York accent, and by the way, one of the brightest guys I ever met. But when I walked in, he had this little picture in his hand, and it was a picture of his tennis court in his backyard. And he said, and he looked at me and he said, I got no life. I just put in this tennis court. I'm never going to play because I got to do the shows all the time. So anyway, who are you? What do you got? And I sat down and showed him my resume, and, you know, and also like a good, you know, college kid, you know, the resume was like 5 pages long with a bunch of activities that I was involved in and stuff. And he said, you know, there's no room in the inn, and not, you know, I'll keep it on file, but I knew, you know, it wasn't going to happen. And I walked out, and as I was walking out, there was this kid in the lobby who was the next kid that was going to go in and interview with him. And the only thing I remember about it was he had a face full of pimples. And he looked up at me as I walked by, sweating with my suit and tie on, and he said, "Nice outfit." And I looked at him, I thought, you ass. And only because the kid did that, I turned back in and I walked back in Mr. Marshall's office, and he was already on the phone talking to somebody. And I said, "Excuse me, Mr. Marshall, I do have something that you said you don't have any life. I can give you a life." And he, just out of pure fascination to what this dope was going to tell him, he said to the guy, you know, "I'll call you back in a minute," probably just thinking, wait till you hear what this kid says to me after this. And he had no idea who my name was by that point. And he said, "So what do you got to give me a life?" And I said, "Your tennis court." I said, "I'll see you Saturday, 10 a.m. I'm going to give you a 55-minute tennis lesson, and you're going to give me a 5-minute writing lesson. And do we have a deal?" And he walked up from his desk and came over to me and shook my hand and said, "See you Saturday." And that became the beginning of again, emotional thinking about it, a lifetime of mentoring relationship, of a gentleman that taught me the art of story, taught me all kinds of things about how to behave, how to marry the arts of business and art, and gave me so many opportunities that I had no business getting as a 22-year-old kid. But you know, the thing that I learned from that lesson was just the importance, I think, when you come out of college, to not make it about what do you need, but what do they need, and how do you sort of identify what they need, and do you have something uniquely that can get that going? And then if you do, good things will happen. And I'd have to say the other time that happened in my life was in my college days at Kentucky. There was this one lousy, it was like a lousy little studio in Lexington, Kentucky, that made local commercials, music commercials and jingles and stuff. And I thought that'd be a good place while I was in college to be a part of, to learn something. And I knocked on the guy's door, and it was like this, it was a 2-room thing. It had a studio, and then he had this room with a sofa and a television set. And it was very clear after about 5 seconds that he really wanted to spend all of his time sitting in that room with a TV set, watching his Cincinnati Reds games and smoking dope all day long. And the studio was absolutely filled with Diet Coke cans. There were 1 million of them. And I said, I'd love to be your intern, and I'd love to just, help out, and I can do music. I can maybe, I can do some musical things. I know how to do a little bit of this and that with music. And he said, "I'm really not interested in that. It's kind of a one-man show around here, and I just really don't need anybody." And I said to him, "Well, if you don't need that, I do have one other skill that you could use, maybe that you'd like, or you'd be interested in, me doing." And he said, "What do you got?" And I said, I'm a spectacular cleaning lady. And that if you'd like, I can come every day, and I also bring with me a vacuum cleaner, by the way, that I got from the fraternity house, and plastic bags, which I got from the fraternity house. And I said, I'll bring them. And I have this amazing talent of putting Diet Coke cans in the plastic bags and putting them out. And I was pointing to the dumpster out his window and putting them in those dumpsters over there. And I could do it over and over again. And he looked at me and said, that sounds fabulous. When can you start? And I did that. And, a couple of days later, while he's watching the, in the 8th inning of the Cincinnati game, suddenly, maybe if you could stay and try to finish the mix on the board. And next thing you know, I'm playing the piano on some of the parts, and then the singer doesn't show up, or background singer. So I'm kind of doing the background vocals and then doing the regular vocals. And after, 3 or 4 months, I was producing the projects from start to finish. And he was just smoking dope over there in the back room watching a Cincinnati Reds game. And lucky me, what a learning experience. I learned what it meant to be in a studio and how to do all those things. But I did it because I tapped into what he needed and how I could provide that. And in that case was a skill as a cleaning lady.
That's 2 separate situations. Both times you're told no room at the end. Thanks for coming. Talk to you later. And you just didn't take it. You said there's got to be another option here. And you turned both of those into success, which is amazing. And you mentioned the word producer. I listened to another podcast where you asked Mr. Marshall, what does a producer do and how do you know when you're a producer? And his answer was, when everybody's looking at you, you're in charge. You're the producer.
Yeah. And he said, because there was guys that, there was all these people that, and I really wanted to be it was like, how do you become a producer? And he said, you become a producer when everybody at the table is looking at you. And he also said, with that, a thing that, really stuck with me with that, it also was a little bit of humility of kind of knowing your place and knowing, how you got to earn your stripes, and you got to put in those years and figure it out so that you've earned your stripes. He had said at that time, I was probably on the show for like a year or something, and I went into his office and I was whining about how I wanted to make more money, and I was whining about how I wanted my title to be better. And he rarely ever got mad or something. And I could tell as the words were coming out of my mouth, I thought, this is not a good idea to have said these things. And he looked at me and he leaned in across the table and he said, Jimmy, if you ever remember anything I've ever told you, remember this. There's not a single thing that you can do that I can't do better. And he said, no, there's one thing. You could stay up. He said, do that. Stay longer than other people. Now get the hell out of my office. And that was great advice, because, I do think that, in terms of the sort of the question about when you graduate from college days, how do you navigate that? How do you get going and get something started? And, I think that one of the great weapons you have when you graduate from college that people don't have when they're in their 40s or 30s, 50s, is you most of the time don't have anything else to do. You've got nothing but time and nothing but energy. And the greatest thing you can do is outwork everybody. And, I always have gotten a kick out of it. Was some interview that was on Charlie Rose, one of those shows, and it was with Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and all the smartest, most talented guys on the planet Earth, all, like 4 of them sitting around. And they said, what is, for you guys with your buddies, what attribute do they share in common? What's the thing that all of you guys do or have that others don't? And they all said, we outwork everybody. And it was just so humbling to hear that's how they look at that. And so I think that is a very valuable thing. And I think as an offshoot of that, a thing that that in a contemporary world where, you know, I think that I'm still forever amazed that the currency that graduate use is this frigging piece of paper that says where you went to school and, you know, and how you were part of the drama club or whatever it is. And to me, in a contemporary world, it has so little to do with that. And that it has everything to do with what game do you have when you graduate. Not that you're, you know, when I was a kid and before that, when you graduate from college, you sold the promise of what you're going to be in the future. I think in a contemporary world, they're not buying promise. They're buying, what do you got Monday morning? What can you bring to the table? What do you got? What game do you have? And I think the trick is now, while you're in college, how do you just absorb? How are you a sponge to life? How do you learn how people behave? How do you learn real skills? If, you know, I've got a young PL that graduated from USC, and he was really into, for birthday present, he got a little drone as a present. And he really got under the skin of it. And he learned how to work it. And he learned how to do it better than anybody else that he knew of his buddies. He learned how to do the software so that he could capture it and edit the stuff. He got out of college, and next thing you know, he's making the videos for Chainsmokers and Tiesto and everybody else under the sun. And he was 23, but he crushed it because he had game coming out. And I'm just so fascinated with kids that graduate with a real skill that had zero to do with college and had everything to do with what they're paying attention to while they're there.
So it's just an active mind and discipline and desire.
I think so. And that's why I think, you know, going back to, you know, Kentucky days and college days, I had one of my best buddy, Joe Grant Clark, I'm getting emotional thinking about that, was incredibly smart and loved the art of education, of school, of scholastics, and of learning. And because I was his buddy, I sort of was a fish on the whale's back. And next thing you know, he dragged me along, and next thing I'm in the honors, you know, club and getting some privileges because I'm in that to take the classes and the teachers I wanted. And suddenly I enjoyed getting good grades. But the thing that, you know, that he taught me, that University of Kentucky taught me, that college taught me, was learning in college was one thing. It was fabulous. It just, you know, the idea that you can go to a place and there's just, you can learn about anything you want, and it's just, the world is your oyster as far as that goes. I mean, it was incredible. But what I really realized was that the magic was learning the art of learning. And that, you know, for me, there's not a night I go to bed that I'm not reading. It's just things I love. I always call them Barnes and Noble stuff, but it's just, it's not real. It's, you know, physics, and for me, anthropology and cosmology and things around the art of behavior and things on the ends of the spectrum of the biggest and the smallest and history. I love that stuff, but I love it because I learned the art of learning when I was in my college days, and it's been a part of my life, my whole life. And I can't recommend to anybody graduating from college stay a student the rest of your life. Be a student, and be a student of the things you love, because that's what's going to make you excited in the art of learning.
Then it's not work. It's easy. If you like it or you love
It's
it, it's
fun.
easy. Oh yeah. Hey, can you take just a minute and share with us what you've done down at SMU? It sounded like an amazing experience, the Dad's Day
Oh,
event.
thank you. At SMU, my two daughters went to school at SMU, and what a great university SMU is. Just so full of love, so full of heart, extraordinary leadership, just an amazing place. But while I was there, one of my daughters was dating an SAE at SMU, and uh, and and through that relationship of getting engaged in the fraternity house, who were just the greatest young men. One year we tried something for fun that fortunately has stuck for now about almost 10 years. But we created this thing that was called Senior Night, and that it was the night before the graduation, when the parents were on campus. And sort of the what if was, what if we create a night that's just for the fathers and sons, and it really dealt with when I went to college at Kentucky. I didn't go to my graduation with the 20,000 other kids from University of Kentucky, and I missed that. And I drove away from the SAE fraternity house and left behind everything. I left behind my best buddies in the world. I left behind a relationship with a girlfriend that meant the world to me. I left behind this place that evolved and blossomed and fed every part of my life in those 4 years. I saw a part of a country and a personality that I never saw before in my life, and I felt so privileged to be a part of that Kentucky community, but never had a sense of closure with that, and so with it, we created this night for the seniors at SMU, where the boys, and it was like 50 of them a year, because it was a big house, would stand up and make a toast in a suit and tie, and in the quiet of this room, and make a toast to the question of who I was, who I am, and who I'm going to be. And and some of the kids would sort of say smarky things about, some stupid thing they did along the journey and all that. But most of these young men every year use that moment to express something really, really important, and maybe that they never said before, maybe they never expressed to their fraternity brothers, and maybe that they never said in front of their dad. And it every year is so powerful, I can't tell you. And then the dads get up and they make a toast and they speak to what it means to have a son in their life and what it means to have that relationship. And but the best part of that evening every year is after that ends, they earlier in the night, all the boys vote for who the true gentleman will be. And then what happens is that the one kid in the room that's not a senior is the junior, is the president that's going to be the next president, the junior that's going to be the president, and he announces the winner of the true gentleman, and it's a big deal, and all the boys walk by the winner and shake his hand or give him the grip, and then they create this circle around him, and the winner off of the plaque reads the true gentleman to them. It's so emotional, it's so wonderful. And that poem you know, of the true gentleman and what that means is such a beautiful, beautiful poem about what it means and what to strive for as a gentleman in your life, and how to make that part of everything you do. And when that happens and that's read and these boys are looking in the eyes of each other, as many of them say year after year, that's graduation for them. That's their goodbye. And that's their acceptance that many of those guys in that room, those 50 guys, they may never see again. And it's an acceptance that, you know, there's going to be a handful of them that they're probably going to stay in touch with and close to. And other than you know, every once in a while get together something, and that's okay. And it's closure on this amazing part of their life, and an amazing part of their life that they will forever take those things that they learned and enjoyed with them the rest of their days. And so, you know, to those in other chapters around the country, can't recommend enough to, you know, to consider doing that at the end of your year. And I'd love to share, Steve, that playbook. I wrote out a thing that sort of captures kind of what that is, of how to kind of, if a chapter were interested, how to do that event and create that sense of tradition in their own chapter.
Oh no, that'd be awesome. That's exactly why we want to do these kinds of interviews, because there's some best practice out there that can really make a change in people's lives. I don't know about you. You mentioned the True Gentleman, and at AT&T, I had it taped onto my desk, and I would read it when I was in the office. I usually traveled 3 days a week, 4 days a week, but I would look at it, and I always felt like it was a quest, and I always felt like I couldn't quite get there. But as long as I stayed on the path, at some point I was better than I would have been. And I think it's tough. And I think when people can't get there, sometimes they quit on it, and they just have to realize it's a quest. You stick to it and you'll be better for it.
Well, your thoughts. No, it's interesting hearing you say that, Steve. It just reminds me back to the first thing you said of that art of possibility, that I am forever amazed that how I think that I know for me, and going back to reunions of high school reunions and stuff, and and all that, I've met a lot of guys that did things in their life that maybe it was just a job. It was just not something they did. And I also realized that oftentimes when people do something that was just a job, doesn't mean that it's not a security blanket. Doesn't mean they're going to be good at it. It just means that they just took a job that they didn't want to do. And that when people do things that they love, or that they feel they really, that it's part of who they are and what they want to do, they tend to be successful. And I'm in hearing you say that, and knowing what your extraordinary success story is along the way, and the different things you've done in your life. And here you are now, after all those successes, running a fraternity of guys in chapters all around the country, and figuring out ways to make that a better experience for all those kids. If that isn't rewarding, if that isn't doing something that makes the world a better place, what is? And so congratulations to you. Lucky you to do something that you love. And it's
not hard to get up in the morning. I could tell you that. It's easy.
Well, it's just congrats. And thanks for the gift of doing that for everybody that's a part of a school and a part of that fraternity, to have gentlemen like you that are figuring out how to make that a better experience.
Well, thank you so much. Jimmy, it's been an amazing experience. The time has flown by. Is there anything else you'd like to share as you leave, a final thought, or anything you want to leave with the realm?
I guess it would just be that to whether you're coming out of college or whether you're in the middle of that journey of 35 or whatever that is, to follow that light, that thing in you that makes you special, that you know, that you think can make a difference in the world. Follow that, listen to that, and push away, as hard as it is, fear and things like that that can get in that way, and follow that magic in you and give that to the world. And if you do, lucky the world and lucky you to be able to do that.
That's amazing. I wish I could bottle your enthusiasm. I don't know that people will see this. I can feel it right now. I wish I had more to do today, because whatever I got left is going to be easy. So, Jimmy, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want you, I need you to make a commitment. If you get to the area, Kentucky, Indiana, and you want to go to a basketball game, I will bring the tissue for you, and next time we play, and we'll watch an Indiana-Kentucky game together.
What could be better than that?
Be my treat.
What could be better? Love it.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.